For this particular assignment, we're actually going to start on our subject. We are going to take just a little bit of pen techniques to work with this, just enough that we can erase our pencil lines, and then we'll come back and add extra details. So what I'm going to start with is my lion. So if you have a subject that has fur, then we can look at how to do fur. I'm going to have my photograph right next to me so that I can check on my textures and things here. So you either have your photo next to you or you have your Chromebook open so that you can see the details. One thing when we talk about subject is we know that our skin is actually over our eye. So because our skin is over our eye, I think a good place to start would be the eyes on any of your subjects, because your skin is around it. So I'm going to start with the eye. And again, just doing just a little bit. I don't want to color anything in black, solid black, just to start. I am just going to add just a little bit of detail. With eyes, I actually like to do a little bit of pointillism and some calligraphic line. So I'm going to be working with my eye. And you guys can see that I'm just kind of doing just a little bit of pointillism here to add. I can see that it is darker here. I definitely have that pupil in the middle, which will eventually come back and we'll color it in super dark black. But for right now, just a little bit at a time just to add that in. We can see that the top. Now, if we look at my photo, it's really, really thick black. But again, I just want to put just a little bit in. You guys can see that I'm kind of using small pen strokes, and that is because the texture of my subject is obviously fur. So I'm just kind of tapping the pen for now to just kind of get a little bit of texture in there. Remember, I am not drawing an eye. I am drawing shapes and lines and placing values. So we know how to use the pen. We just have to figure out which kind of texture, cross-hatching, pointillism, hatching, which is going to be best to do our shapes that we're working with. So the eye, I'm choosing pointillism. The outside of the eye, I'm doing just a little bit of hatching, but I'm also kind of including some calligraphic line because it's pretty thick here. That's about all I'm going to do with the eye. I can move on and do the other eye and do the same technique. For the nose, I think that our nose should probably also be in pointillism. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of a calligraphic line. So you can see it's a little darker here, then it's going to get thinner. I don't have to continue the line. I can leave it completely pure white, kind of round that out a little bit. And again here, I'm going to use some pointillism. Now we know that the fur is over the nose too, so that's why I came down and I'm adding just a tiny bit of pen on the subject here. Okay, so that's just enough to get a little bit of work. Okay, let's talk about fur. Once you do eyes and noses of your subject, you can move on to the surface. So if you have fur surface, you can continue to watch this demonstration. If you have a different type of texture for your subject, then maybe you would want to research some other ideas. But before we continue to work on the design, what I wanted to tell you was if your subject has any kind of markings, you probably are going to have those markings drawn out first. Any switches in color, any switches in darks, you can have those drawn out. That way when you come back with your pen, you know exactly where to add them. So I can see here that this is darker. Now, I know that the fur is shorter on the nose, it's a little longer on the face. So, if I'm coming here to the nose, we know that that nose is probably having hairs that are extremely short, and they're going to grow in a different manner than the rest of the face. So, I'm taking the side of my pen, not super at the top, I'm taking the side of my pen, and I am going to do these little short hairs. And I'm looking here and I can see that it's a little darker here. So I'm going to put some tinier hairs here that are a little bit more concentrated. And you can see that it gets a little lighter. Again, just enough to start. We can always go back and make it darker, but the problem is with pen, clearly we cannot erase. So we want to make sure that we're using just a little bit to get us going, and then we can always come back and darken it. So this is kind of the same manner that I would be doing for the entire nose. Notice that I'm putting my pen tip down and upward because that's how the hair is growing off of the nose. I'm turning the hair too. I can turn it and kind of make the hair look like it's growing downward as well. So you can probably guess about what's going to happen to some of these hairs over here. You can see that it's really, really bright white in that area. So I can tell that the hair is going to be getting longer, and I can also tell that there is a dark stripe. So we know it's texture. Instead of doing just a black flat shape, I'm actually going to do hatching, and I'm going to put a bunch of hatch marks really close together. That way it actually mimics the fur. I can even make it shorter and lighter as it's coming down around that eye. Okay, and now we know that there's more hair here and it's lighter, so it might even be getting longer as we get away from the eye. So I'm just going to do a little bit more fur texture, but not as much. Again, using the side of that pen so it kind of skips over a little bit, which is kind of cool. And now I'm going to come back and do this piece here where I can make the fur longer strokes, but again, letting them look like they're growing, like you're combing your hair. And remember what we talked about with the hatching is that we press and lift. We're not creating a pattern with it and making perfect lines. Okay, so we're going to keep going.